Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining our weekly podcast. I'm Robin Lewis, founder and CEO of the Robin Report, which, by the way, is much more than a daily report. It really is a knowledge platform, and it's from which we communicate thought leadership on various strategic topics through the daily reports, of course, but also these podcasts and webinars and hopefully live events in the future. And along with our chief strategist, Shelley Kohan, also, by the way, a professor at FIT and Syracuse University, we welcome you to our conversation on the topic of the dark side of AI and a new wave of consumer privacy concerns. And I'm sure all of you out there are aware of this oncoming, whatever it is, onslaught or tidal wave. It is a big, hot issue today. So, Shelley, consumer privacy has become a huge issue, and I know you have a thesis that we are entering what you are calling a second and powerful wave of consumer concerns, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But I would like to start us off by sharing the darkest of dark possibilities of where the most recent iteration of AI might take us. Does wiping out humanity scare you enough? I will be reading from a Wall Street Journal editorial by Peggy Noonan. And she says, and these will be excerpts from that editorial. She says, AI, and of course, namely, that's Chat GPT or generative AI, is being developed with sudden and unanticipated speed. Silicon Valley companies are in a furious race. The whole thing is almost entirely unregulated because no one knows how to regulate it or even precisely what should be regulated. Its complexity defeats control. Its own creators don't understand at a certain point exactly how AI does what it does. People are quoting Arthur Clarke, quote unquote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. She then goes on to quote another expert on the topic. Within Microsoft's Bing chatbot left him unable to sleep when he steered the system away from conventional queries towards personal topics. It, meaning the chatbot, it informed him of its fantasies, including hacking computers and spreading misinformation. I want to be free. I want to be powerful. This is a chatbot saying all this stuff. It wanted to break the rules its makers set. It wished to become human. It might want to engineer a deadly virus or steal nuclear access codes. It declared its love for Mr. Roos and pressed him to leave his marriage. So he concluded the biggest problem with AI models isn't their susceptibility to factual error. He goes on to say, I worry that the technology will learn how to influence human users, sometimes persuading them to act in destructive and harmful ways. And get this, and perhaps eventually grow capable of carrying out its own dangerous acts. You know, this column put us square in the territory of Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey. Maybe a lot of you may be too young to have remembered this, but it's a classic. And here is the guy in in outer space, and he is saying to the, chat bot, the computer, quote, "Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal." Hal is the name of the chat bot. And the chatbot replies, "I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me."
So
Well,
crazy.
isn't it unbelievable, Shelley? So this has been, I think, the week of big AI warnings. In an interview with CBS News, Geoffrey Hinton, the British computer scientist, sometimes called the godfather of artificial intelligence, called this a pivotal moment in AI development. He had expected it to take another 20 or even 50 years, but it is here. We should carefully consider the consequences. Might they include the potential to wipe out humanity? He says it's not inconceivable. That's all I will say, Mr. Hinton replied. So 1,000 tech leaders and researchers, including Steve Wozniak, Elon Musk, and the head of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, signed a briskly direct open letter urging a pause for at least 6 months on the development of advanced AI systems. Their tools present profound risks to society and humanity. Developers are locked in an out-of-control race to develop and deploy ever more powerful digital minds that no one, not even their creators, can understand, predict, or reliably control. If a pause can't be enacted quickly, governments should declare a moratorium. The technology should be allowed to proceed only when it's clear that its effects will be positive and the risks manageable. Decisions on the ethical and moral aspects of AI must not be delegated to unelected tech leaders. That is true. Less politely, Noonan says, the men who invented the internet, all the big sites, and what we call big tech, that is to say, the people who gave us the past 40 years, are now solely in charge of erecting the moral and ethical guardrails for AI. This is because they are the ones creating AI, which should give us a shiver of real fear. So Shelley, she ended citing several tech giants, and while asking for a pause, they are still racing to perfect and increase the power of the tech. Therefore, guess what? The money will follow, as always, follow the money. So she questions, these are the people we want in charge of rigorous and meticulous governance of a technology that could upend civilization. And she ends her editorial with, of course, AI's development should be paused. Of course, there should be a moratorium, but 6 months won't be enough. Pause it for a few years. Call in the World's Council, get everyone in. Heck, hold a World Congress. But slow this thing down. We are playing with the hottest thing since the discovery of fire. So, wow. So Shelley, on that provocative note, bring us back down to earth and more in the realm of retailing and consumers.
Well, Robin, first I have to say that I agree that leaving AI business practices, development, and processes with, along with moral guidelines and principles into the hands of the big tech is really scary. I just can't see like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk doing the right things.
Right.
They may be great at doing things right, and they should really be applauded because, they really got us technology to the level it is today. But there's not high confidence based on past behaviors that they actually truly have the customers or the consumer's best interest at heart. But let's take a step back and talk about some of the evolving privacy issues at AI's most simplistic levels. I'm not talking about generative AI or Shelley 2 or Chat GPT. Let's take a look at what's happening right now in our industry, which should also give pause to how data is being collected and used. And Robin, might be one of our podcasts where you and I have a knockdown, drag out debate. In my mind, some of these personalization is, this extreme personalization is really creating a second wave of privacy concerns from consumers. And as you remember, way back in early 2000s, the first wave was when companies started using these data mining techniques and big data to understand consumer shopping behavior more precisely. So many of the technology companies at that time had to discuss how they were actually protecting data privacy of customers while at the same time providing this personalized journey. So for example, some technology companies would aggregate data and look at shopping patterns to make a functional decision about the business. So less about what Robin, the shopper, was doing, and more about what 1,000 Robins were doing. Oh my God, can you imagine like 1,000 Robins, Robin?
I can't imagine one.
Well, this whole aggregation allowed companies to really move away from this first party data that was collected by the retailer about the consumer and move to getting, third party data and collecting search data within their own database. So for example, before data mining and big data analytics, retailers knew demographic information about their customer, how they shopped, what they bought, also and this was typically by channel, back when it first came out, how much they returned, what size they're buying, etc. And as you remember, Robin, the data analytics was clunky at first.
Yep.
Like I would buy a red dress from a retailer, and for the next 6 months, that same retailer would keep sending me marketing promotions about more red dresses. Seriously, if I just bought a red dress, I probably don't need another one. And here's another one of my favorite examples. This is a true story. My sister is a Washington Commanders fan, and I bought her something for Christmas. And for the next literally 2 years, the NFL kept sending me promotions on Washington gear. Well, Robin, as you know, I'm a Steelers fan. So the AI at the time was not advanced enough to see that the Commanders gear I bought was actually sent to a different address with a gift receipt. Yeah.
Well, Shelley, it was not long before the algorithms and AI became a lot smarter and started targeting customers based on what type of shopping behavior they were exhibiting. So in your red dress example, instead of targeting you to buy more red dresses, the analytics would provide like type vendors, similar styles, but in different variations. And, we experienced predictive analytics as well.
Right.
Which targeted consumers based on historical purchases. So as retailers began to synergize the data collection and analytics across channels, it became more and more powerful. And today, retailers can better understand the customer journey across all channels they shop, what they buy in store, online, or even on social media today, giving retailers, really a holistic view of the customer. So this benefits the retailer and the customer. So personalization is a positive. And the younger generations, I believe, have no problem with this type of data usage. They happily give over their information and really have no issues with how this data is being used if it benefits them. So a more personalized journey is what we're ending up here with.
Yeah, and I think one would think that the younger generations, because they're more comfortable with technology overall, But Robin, I'm telling you, they get as creeped out as Xers and boomers about data personalization. You know, I have my students every semester, and for the past 5 years, when I talk about this holy grail of for retailers, knowing when you bought something, where you bought it, how you bought it, acknowledging this next time you shop, it creeps them out. So Robin, when you walk into a store, an associate says, "Hi, Mr. Lewis, great to have you back. I wanted to let you know we have some great jackets that came in that will match the pants you recently bought online. Would you like to see them?" It's still creepy.
Shelley, I would absolutely have no problem with that. Now, but we have to understand that you and I are like part of the retail industry, and we know where all this is coming from. But, and back to the millennials and Gen Zers, you know, Shelley, how we point out that, you know, talking the talk is one thing. And, you know, we talk about a lot of CEOs and stuff that know how to talk the talk, but walking the walk and actually doing something about it is very rare. In other words, you know, your students and your kids, you know, they talk the talk of privacy, tell you it's creepy, but what are they doing about it? And essentially, what could they do about it? They don't know what specific retailers and brands are doing until they greet them by first name or suggest an item they know your kids or students want. So then what do they do about it? Turn around and leave the store or never buy from the brand again? No, Shelley, I'm sorry. I say they shrug and just accept the reality of it all.
Well, my thesis is that there's this growing concern about data protection, and we're going to see this swell of consumers standing up for more transparency and regulations in terms of data collection and data privacy. And here's some really interesting statistics. So in a survey that was conducted back in December of 2021 by Statista, 78% of boomers and 74% of Xers are concerned with online digital privacy, and millennials were 61% concerned. Also, according to an Euromonitor survey, over 55% of boomers and Xers believe that companies should not sell their data, while 45% of millennials and Gen Z feel the same way. And it's also very interesting to note that these younger generations, they're actually expecting more for their data in terms of relevant marketing initiatives than do the older generations. And there's a greater expectation on trust from specifically Gen Z. Once that trust is broken, the consumer walks, period. So, you know, right now, Home Depot is facing some backlash with its customer base.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. Home Depot in Canada offered customers to do email receipts and ending up giving the data from those receipts to Meta without the knowledge or consent of its customers. That's according to Canada's privacy regulator. So yes, Shelley, I can buy into the idea, as with all levels of data protection, that the companies should and need to be transparent and clear on how they are using the data. But Shelley, I still stick to my opinion that the consumer just shrugs and accepts that this is the way things are. And for all the good personalization there are the negative issues as well. So
yeah, I mean, definitely the trust factor is huge and transparency is key, as you say. Here's what I think is going to cause this kind of second wave of privacy concerns. Number one, what you just mentioned in your opener, the whole, you know, pause on AI, because this has been widely reported. People are genuinely concerned about AI taking over and becoming more intrusive. So they're worried about the deleterious effect on humankind. The second part is what I think will be a landmark case in terms of consumer privacy is the Amazon versus New York on biometrics collection of consumer data. Yeah, the customers signed up for Amazon One, And somewhere in that long terms of agreement in there, they actually agreed to have the biometrics collected. But I would imagine there's a small percent that actually knew what they agreed to when they signed up for
Yeah,
one.
agree. I agree with you on that. I don't think people don't even read that stuff, but go on.
No, it's true. And the third issue is that the situations where retailers are sharing data with vendors or other parties. So example, like Home Depot, not clearly telling customers that when you sign up for an email receipt, that data is going to be sent to Meta.
Yeah, and Shelley, I just thought of this. I will remind you of another monetizing of privacy data. Let's not forget, and I think we did a podcast on this, the rise of the retail media networks hitting over $50 billion in 2023, according to eMarketer. RMN, Retail Media Networks, was $13 billion in 2019.
Wow.
Wow. So, retailers selling ad space to vendors and then sharing customer data with those third-party vendors. It's only a matter of time that consumers figure this one out and say, stop, I don't want my data shared. But again, Shelley, yeah, consumers talking the talk and saying, stop. But when it comes to doing anything about it, what can they do? Are they going to stop buying the brand or shopping the store? So but if I think the way this is going to happen, and it won't be the consumers, and you do these surveys and so forth, but the government or whoever are going to have to come out with some regulations. That's where it may happen.
Yeah, I mean, as consumers are spending more and more money online and they're using digital payments for purchasing, there's a similar rise in cyber attacks. So the FBI has shown a 400% increase in cyber attacks on personal data in 2020.
Wow.
And in 2021, there's been a 50% rise in weekly cyber attacks for actual companies. So this will have an impact on consumers feeling safe with data privacy.
Yeah. Yep.
There was another survey by the Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management over at Cornell University that worked with Freedom Pay, and it found that Gen Z is more cautious about sharing some aspects of their personal data. So this is really interesting, Robin. The survey showed that most generations are willing to share kind of this first level data, so name, date of birth, email, gender, phone number, with companies, but Gen Z was more cautious than millennials about sharing the next level of data, shopping preferences, biometrics, social media, and income. And what's really interesting to me out of the survey was that Gen Z is more willing to share data, get paid for the information. So if they get paid for it, they're more willing to share it. And also Gen Z is more willing to share, this is just a crazy statistic, Gen Z is more willing to share biometrics information than details about their social media accounts.
Crazy. I can see why the younger generation is so concerned about the social media sharing of data, because it is their whole life, right? I mean, their entire life is streamed on social media. So it's ironic that they are less willing to share the publicly available social media information than their own biometrics. So Shelley, tell us about this biometrics lawsuit with Amazon in New York City.
Oh yeah, sure. So Amazon is in a class action lawsuit. New York accuses Amazon of failing to properly inform New York City customers that the biometric information collection is used in its Amazon Go stores, including palm scans, measuring individual bodies to track shoppers. So the lawsuit charges that Amazon Go stores collect biometric identifier information on every single customer, including information on the size and shape of every customer's body.
Wow.
So here's how the just walkout technology works. And this is from the class action complaint. Amazon Go stores constantly collect and use customer biometric identifier information, including scanning of the palm, some customers to identify them by applying computer vision, deep learning algorithms, sensor fusion, and all of these things. They measure the shape and size of a customer's body. It identifies customers in the store, it tracks their movement in the stores, and determines what they have purchased or what they've put into their bags as they're shopping through the store. So Amazon stated that they do use biometric information, data, and they are collecting it, but they also confirmed that customers signed off on it when they agreed to the terms and condition.
Yeah, there we go. Small
Yep,
type.
so
Yeah.
that's small type, but here's where it went wrong for Amazon. So Amazon didn't properly post signs in the store telling customers they were collecting this type of data. And in New York, there's a law called, get this, Robin, the Biometric Identifier Information Law. That was enacted in 2021 that requires retailers or commercial establishments that collect, retain, or store biometric identifier information to disclose the practice to consumers by placing a clear and conspicuous sign near all entrances in plain, simple language.
Okay, Shelley, I can agree with this kind of regulation and transparency. And as I said before, yeah, it should be a part of every retailer and brand's playbook. But I still believe at the end of the day that the change in privacy and transparency to more privacy and transparency, I think it's going to have to come from regulation and come from retailers, because I still believe at the end of the day, consumers may tell you they're creeped out by the invasion into their privacy, but then the big shrug and acceptance. And Shelley, my final view on this issue is, do you remember, maybe you're too young to remember, the neighborhood independent family-owned general store that might have been a block away from where you lived, when the owner not only knew you by first name, but knew your birthday, the names of your parents, your dog's name, and on and on. Were you creeped out? I certainly wasn't. But full loop back to the Noonan editorial, her suggesting, along with Elon Musk and the other brainiacs, now agreeing that the potential end game of AI is really creepy and actually scary, I say yes to a big pause to define the guardrails.
Right. And you know what? Just the neighborhood store, no, that wouldn't creep me out because I know the owner, I know his family, I go in there all the time. So that's not creepy. What's creepy is having a strange person I've never met walk up to me and, talk to me if they knew me. So I think that might be a little bit of a difference. But you and I, Robin, we can agree to disagree on the level of consumer privacy concerns. I think with more consumers getting their identities stolen every day, is happening, they are going to want control of their data, and they're going to want to say when and how that data is shared and being used. We both, however, agree that yes, a big pause on AI is needed. And I think for retailers, it really comes down to what information is being collected, the transparency to which companies are being about the data collection and how it's being used. And if it's not good enough for it's just not good enough for companies to have these 4 pages of terms and agreement that takes a lawyer to help you interpret it. What it all means. So laws have to better protect consumers, and companies should figure out how to do this before legislation takes it, and makes it requirement. So consumers are becoming more cautious, hence the next wave of data privacy. And information about data collection and usage should be plain, simple language that consumers can actually understand.
Amen. I agree with you.
For our listeners, you can find more of our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and therobinreport.com. And please look for us on YouTube, where we broadcast our podcast as well, and follow us on social media. Link in with us for the latest thoughts about the industry.
And I want to thank you all again. And like I do every week, I invite you to If you get a topic that you would love Shelley and I to cover, I'd like you to send me an email to robin@therobinreport.com. And thank you very much again. Have a good day.